from that formative experience with a much more sense of gratitude for everything you have in this country.
Melinda Gates, thank you so much for joining us on Bloomberg Studio 1.0.
Who shaped my views were the women I talked to.
I think Facebook's probably won in a lot of ways.
Running Microsoft was a ton of fun, and it was, it's kind of inspirational.
This is your weekly review of the most important business news and interviews from Bloomberg Television around the world.
A giant of alternative investments. Blackstone, founded in 1985, now has around $570 billion of assets under management. It started in M&A, but expanded into private equity, hedge funds, and credit. And it's made co-founder Stephen Schwarzman one of the richest people in finance and the world. Raised in suburban Philadelphia, Schwarzman learned entrepreneurship at an early age. His father owned a dry goods store, and at 14, he started his first business. His younger brothers mowed lawns while he brought in the clients. Educated at Yale and Harvard Business School, he became a managing director at Lehman Brothers at the age of 31. He climbed the corporate ladder, heading the global M&A team before striking out on his own. From Bloomberg's European headquarters in the City of London, on this episode of Leaders with Lacroix, we meet Stephen Schwarzman, the co-founder and chief executive of Blackstone Group. Steve Schwarzman, thank you so much for speaking to us here on Bloomberg. What drives you?
That's a great question. It's a desire to do things well. It's a desire to create, a desire to make things happen.
Have you always felt this drive from a young age?
Yeah, I always was like this, and which makes it easy. That way you don't have to evolve particularly. I was like this as a teenager, and it was just a feeling I had.
A feeling of what? Of greatness, that you wanted to achieve something, to be remembered for something, to have a legacy?
No, I don't care about that. It's just the moment. being able to do something that's consequential. And it could be a kid hitting a home run to win a baseball game. It could be starting an organization. It could be making something better. I always had that drive and instinct, and it didn't matter to me whether I was sort of alone doing it, as long as I thought it would be well received.
So why did you start Blackstone back in 1985?
Well, I started Blackstone because I had sold Lehman Brothers to American Express in 1984, and it's because Lehman was in financial trouble, which happened periodically at Lehman. It finally managed to auger in 2008. And so I didn't want to stay with the Lehman people. Mm-hmm. I didn't think the business really needed to have been sold. It could have been solved a different way, but people on the board didn't want to. And so I went off with Steve Peterson, who was formerly chairman but was squeezed out, management infighting, and we started what was the first financial boutique. Now there are tons of them, but back then nobody had done that, and so we did that, and we came up with a strategic plan to not only do M&A work, which I was used to, but also to start a private equity business and get ready to start other types of businesses, which we called at the time affiliates, where we'd attract somebody who was a 10 on a scale of 10 to basically develop an area where we saw amazing prospects coming for the future. It was so good, even we couldn't mess them up. And also, that new business would generate intellectual capital that would make our existing businesses stronger. And disappointing as it is, that's what we're still doing. But we're now doing it as the largest firm in the world in our alternative area, continuing to add new businesses, new concepts, attracting great people, and it gets easier and easier as you do it. It's tough at the beginning. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Yes, sure.
But the risks are bigger.
No. The risks are smaller because you've learned so much on the journey to figure out what works, and your ability to attract people is infinitely better when you're a little bitty business. People don't trust the success of that business. They don't want to leave where they are. Now, the tables are turned in that because we've become a great brand name, and we almost never fail when we start something.
Did you realize back then that you would become so big?
No. How could you know that? We started something for the reasons less for the business strategy per se than the feeling. Life is funny like that. If you ask somebody to decorate a home for you, you basically do best working with that person to tell them what you want to feel like when you're in that space, not how to do it. And what I wanted was to make sure we had so much activity going on that it was really amusing, intellectually fulfilling, and could provide feeds so that I could understand the world better.
Why do you think you were such a success?
I think our timing was good. I think we went into businesses where if you had capability, you really couldn't fail. I think the world was moving our way, and we understood it. That wasn't luck. The idea that finance would consolidate, and from when I joined Lehman in '72, where you had about 500 people, to when it perished in 2008 with 30,000 people. The difference between working at a place with 500 versus 30,000, to me meant there would be an enormous opportunity to recruit people who just simply didn't want to be in an environment with 30,000. And that made it possible for us to bring on board people that we never could have hired.
Coming up, Steve Schwarzman on timing the markets to perfection.
When your stupid friends are getting rich, this is usually a sign that there's too much credit available.
Creeper, oh man. So way back in the mine, got our pickaxe swinging from side to side, side to side. This task a grueling one, hope to find some diamonds tonight, diamonds tonight. Heads up, you hear a sound, turn around and look up. Total shock fills your body. Oh no, it's you again. I can never forget those eyes. 'Cause baby, tonight the creeper's trying to steal our stuff again. 'Cause baby, tonight you grab your pick, shovel and bolt again, and run until it's done, until the sun comes up in the morn. 'Cause baby, tonight the creeper's trying to steal our stuff again, Just when you think you're safe, overhear some hissing from right behind, right behind. That's a nice life you have, shame it's gotta end at this time. Blows up, then your health bar drops and you could use a one-up. Get inside, don't be tardy. So now you're stuck in there, half a heart is left, but don't die. 'Cause baby, tonight the creeper's trying to steal our stuff again. 'Cause baby, tonight you grab your pick, shovel and bolt again, and run until it's done, until the sun comes up in the morn. 'Cause baby, tonight the creeper's trying to steal our stuff again.
You're mine. Dig up diamonds and craft those diamonds and make some armor. Get it, baby, going forge that like you so. MLG Pro, the sword's made of diamonds, so come at me, bro. Training in your room under the torchlight, hone that form to get you ready for the big fight. Every single day in the home light, creepers out prowling. Alright, look at me, look at you. Take my revenge, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm a warrior, baby, what else is new? And my blade's gonna tear
'Cause
through you.
baby,
Bring it.
tonight the creeper's trying to steal all our stuff again.
Gather your stuff. Yeah, let's take back the world.
Baby, tonight grab your sword, armor, and gold.
It's on.
Take your revenge. So fight like it's the last night of your lifetime. Show them your body. 'Cause baby, tonight the creeper's trying to steal our stuff again. 'Cause baby, tonight you grab your pick, shovel and bolt again, and run until it's done, until the sun comes up in the morn. 'Cause baby, tonight, come on, the creeper's trying to steal our stuff again.
That was a competitor. It was worth 3 billion pounds or something. It made, I guess, 150, 200 million pounds. And you know, it was worth 3 billion. WeWorks, which was doing nothing but losing money had a quote valuation of $47 billion. That made no sense. How could you have one company doing really well financially, the other one hemorrhaging?
But whose fault is that?
Well, it's not ours. I mean, it's the fault in that case of a narrow group of buyers putting subsequent rounds of financing into a company. You've seen this a few times now, where what happens is, from an accounting point of view, you keep making a profit on your old investments in that company, the more you pay on the new one.
Yeah.
So there's a perverse incentive to keep paying more because it makes you look like you're successful.
Right.
The problem becomes once you get out of your own little circle of venture capitalists and you meet the real world, then the real world says, 47 billion, what are you talking about? Right? And so that's another indicia of a market that's in effect overbought. So you know that's a time where you really have either the red light or the amber light on for caution. On the bottom, that's actually harder, because when things collapse, sometimes people think they'll automatically get better. But sometimes they don't. I remember one situation in 1982 when the oil business collapsed, oil prices collapsed, and you could buy buildings in Houston at very good prices. 10 years later, they were the same price. So just being at a bottom doesn't make sense.
But how can you tell?
Well, what I've learned is you wait for things to start getting better. You wait for prices to go up. If you basically give up the first 10 or 15% of profit, but you see there's real momentum behind the economy, you're better off waiting, and then you buy.
There's a lot of criticism on PE firms, right? That you squeeze too much, that you overborrow. How do you face some of that criticism?
Well, I think that's basically wrong. It may have been right in the 1980s. We're so far from that. To make money in the private equity part of our business, which is only about 25% of it now, you have to buy a company and make it grow. If all it does is just lay there, or you cut some cost, nobody's going to pay you much more than what you paid. So there's three mechanisms. First, if you grow much faster, that's a good thing. If your profits grow along with it, that's a great thing. So you get a higher PE on exit, you have more E, and then you put some leverage on the company that you don't pay back for typically 10 years, so you have plenty of time and don't risk the business in any way. If you prosecute that model, you will get great returns. And the advantage that we have is we study all these things before we buy the company. We're trying not to have an adventure, right? There's enough adventure in life. And if we can get it done before we buy it, know what we think we can do with that business, and then do it, we'll make very large profits and rate of return without taking risk. And I know people think entrepreneurs like to take risk. If you ask an entrepreneur what he or she is doing, they don't think there's risk. Now, they may be wrong, but nobody's looking for risk. We're certainly not.
But have you ever got involved in something out of a gut feeling? Either an asset that you really liked or something that spoke to you? Well, that was maybe riskier than in the past.
Well, we won't go where there's really risk. What happens is sometimes you meet a person who's an entrepreneur or a manager, and you can be taken by that person. We've had examples. One here in London with the manager who's developed Merlin, which is a big company in the UK. It's the second biggest amusement park company in the world after Disney. And when we bought that company for £88 million, one of my partners, Joe Barata here in London, who's young, he wanted to do this. I said, Joe, this is just so small, it makes no sense. He said, you wait and see. This is a terrific entrepreneur, and buy other things. And, we made about, I guess, 5 times our money, on a lot of money by the time we finished. So what happens is there are times where you do respond to a situation. I don't know whether that's instinct or whatever, but it's backed by a full risk analysis on the 2 or 3 key drivers that could really make a mess of any investment. And that's where we try and add value. The upside of things, most people see the upside because they don't come to the table to get something approved unless there's really an upside. It's the downside where people, I think, fall short.
Coming up, Steve Schwarzman on facing the challenges in today's political climate.
We're clearly going through some very unusual times, enormous difficulties getting groups of people to agree on things, an adversarial nature in politics.
Another day of risk off across the financial markets. We bring you special coverage of all the price action and implications here on Bloomberg Television.
Steve Schwarzman is a lifelong Republican. He raised money for George W. Bush and worked with congressional Republicans on the request of President Obama to avoid the fiscal cliff fallout in 2012. And more recently, he's been confidant to President Trump and his team, eventually serving as chairman of the administration's Strategic and Policy Forum. He says in his memoir, What It Takes, Lessons in the Pursuit of Excellence, that if the goal is to help your country, serving is always worth doing. Do you ever feel like Washington and Wall Street are too close?
Too close? No, I don't see them as too close. I try and help out from time to time on certain types of issues. I always try to do stuff that I think is good for the country. It's not this president. There have been other ones. People need advice or they need help in some area. And so I'm like an equal opportunity employer. If I could do something that's helpful, in my view, not biased, but helpful for the greater good, I like to do stuff like that.
What do you think we're living through, either in politics or geopolitics or the economy? There seems to be huge shifts without really being able to put your finger on it yet.
Yeah, well, we're clearly going through some very unusual times and enormous difficulties getting groups of people to agree on things, an adversarial nature in politics. is trying to go back and figure out, you know, this almost feels like
the most beautiful thing It's the most beautiful.
It's a banana next to 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 a banana.
It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. It's a banana next to a banana.
Not really a place, but a concept. The idea is, can you help pair artists with technologists, scientists to create something new?
The lab serves as a proving ground for new technologies. The program is very exploration-driven. Projects happen worldwide or online or in space. We've done really exciting things like launch a sculpture into low Earth orbit, and we've worked with really exciting artists like Kirsten Mosier, who has a long history of using artistic inquiry as a way of looking at landscape.
I had proposed to find out what the exact shape of a wave is. It's hard to measure, so I wanted to figure it out through some sort of technological means.
John Suh works closely with LACMA to deliver new works and projects through the Art and Tech Lab.
The convergence of our technology for me has been thinking about problems or challenges that I never thought about before. In this case, in terms of creating a new type of art. The technology is not the point of the art, right? But the art itself is some expression, emotion, or perspective. And so I think there's a kind of beautiful relationship there where it's not art versus technology, it's really this combination of the two making something together.
Technology has created a seamlessly connected world. And this has led stronger notions of collaboration and collectiveness, which has powered many artists and institutions to create new, diverse work built by many new artistic relationships. But is the artist's role becoming more empowered or diluted? Perhaps the traditional idea of a solo artist is something that is fast becoming extinct. Our path into the future is unknown. But what is known is that technology's role will only be greater. Artists and institutions have a vital role to play in how we imagine and shape our futures. And this can sometimes mean challenging the ideas and fundamental principles of innovation, as well as its role in society.
I think a lot of people feel disconnected from technology. Everyone should have a say. Everyone should have an understanding of how we can collectively organize.
This means not just addressing the concerns of today, but projecting how we can fix the future.
The theme as eternal networks is such a great way of summarizing the importance of the future.
With data now the world's most valuable resource, mining and misuse poses a threat to our freedoms. At the Shed in New York, a new exhibition, Manual Override, sees artists use their work to ask how we can wrestle back control.
What all of those artists have done in this show, Manual Override, is really to take their artistic practice and intersect that with their interest in issues around technology and how an artwork can be born from that interdisciplinary look.
The title Manual Override refers to the moment in 80s action films when a piece of technology has gone awry and a lever or a red button appears in which someone can stop the system and save the day. And so in my work within technology and with artists who use software, I've really found in the last 10 years in conversations that there is no button, there is no lever, and this is really the central problem of our time. And I think a lot of people feel disconnected from technology. Everyone should have a say. Everyone should have an understanding of how we can collectively organize and how to talk about these tools and feel facility and comfort with the language around them.
The show's curator, Nora Khan, and influential artist Lynn Hirschman Leeson discuss how we can reclaim our digital selves.
You're dealing with the issues of your time, and the technology is like the way to express the particular issues that didn't exist before.
I think literacy around data and data privacy users of contemporary technology will have a very heightened sense of the fact that every time you make a post or post an image that information is uploaded and is being used in ways that are outside of your control. So I think the understanding of that and the extent and range of that is a huge part of what needs to be taught.
One thing, if people were to understand the loss of themselves and band together to change the direction, I think that you would see a massive change in both in societal values and individual belief in themselves, belief in their system. It's not an easy thing to do, to change a legal structure, to change a society, to make them aware, but it's not impossible.
I mean, in my experience, artists are given the challenges of technological design that we are facing right now, which I think the show is hopefully framing. Artists are really at the forefront of revealing that design and that intent.
Transmediale draws out new connections between art, culture, and technology. And the title of this year's show nods to some of the key topics that are important to our time now and the future.
For us, it's not only about digital art, it's not only about the technology, it's about the cultural transformations that we are undergoing. And I think that's kind of a perspective now that's becoming more and more, I think, widespread, also after the so-called post-internet art, where a lot of younger artists from growing up with the experience of the internet and not knowing any other kind of media reality, basically, and reflecting that in their work, whether it was digital or sculpture or painting. And I think that trend is definitely also here to stay. It's going to become more or less natural to have that kind of reflection in your work.
Taking a deep dive into the question of networks, experimental art collective Keiken provide their own unique perspectives.
The theme of the festival as eternal networks is such a great way of summarizing the importance of the future. For example, there's so many signs of like what's been happening with climate change, yet we've only started to act on it because it's become part of popular culture.
We're exhibiting here a film called Film My Metaverse, which is a CGI film about a hyper-fictional future.
The narrative of the hyper-fictional film is set in a future where the climate crisis has rendered the Earth uninhabitable. What that means is that the humans left on the Earth are kind of forced to inhabit multiple different virtual realities.
Isabel Ramos from art collective Keiken and Transmediale director Christopher Gansing discussed the limitations and merits of the network.
So as a sort of collective practice, our central sort of methodology is world building. And within that, you have multiple narratives operating at the same time. You can also have multiple people working with the story, multiple elements existing in that space. And I think in this creation of this work, we really took that and speculate how they would operate. How does it exist to exist in these multiple spaces? What has been amazing about digital technologies and networks is we practice as an art collective. There's 3 of us who sort of co-founded it. However, there's people always coming in and out to help kind of grow. And a lot of our development of our practice has been meeting new collaborators, has been through online experiences. It's amazing how you can just connect with someone and you've never met them. And that is completely possible through the networks that are there.
I think today, in a way, we have maybe reached the limits of the network imaginary as a kind of social technical model of the world, and that we need a more expanded vision on what a network world can be. To think about more on the general level of what networks and technology kind of does to society. What you're describing is also, for me anyway, networks as actually organization in itself. We need to be more attentive to also how these networks are not simply tools. They are like forms of organization that brings us together in new ways.
How is the collision of art and technology driving a new era of art? And how does the concept of the Art and Tech Lab facilitate this?
I think it's inevitable that technology is going to play more of a role in the way that experience is mediated in the museum world. Today we see a lot of, selfies happening at the museum and that sort of thing, and the way that audiences engage with the museum, they're looking more at their handheld device for information or just to take photos and share and distribute them. But there's other ways also that technology can play a role, whether it's introducing new forms of artwork to audiences that had no idea such technological areas could be of interest to artists.
Joel Faree is joined by lab advisor John Suh, Vice President of Hyundai Motor Group's Corporate Venturing and Open Innovation Center Cradle, and lab artist Kirsten Mosher to discuss the intersection of art and technology.
I think we are trying to make a statement that art and technology, they're not always separate. There's a lot more to get out of a conversation when you have both in the room.
Technology, at least in the business context, so often is very utilitarian. This program has afforded me the opportunity to think about technology used in a different way. Maybe it's forging a new direction in the sense that which might be considered art is changing. It can be different, and that which could be a typical way of using engineering or technology talent is also changing at the same time.
A lot of people don't think of themselves as, their identity isn't, I'm a technology artist. It can be misleading because it's not as much about one's identity or even desire to use high-tech technology. It's more if you're asking questions that are pretty broad and might have a lot of paths.
With technology, you do see a lot happening as far as extending or creating new ways to experience art. It used to be that it happened only in the museum, but that was the hallowed place, where you come there for the experience, and that's it. And over the years, as artists have gotten a hold of new tools, they've expanded. And I think we're kind of just in the beginning of that phase of finding new parameters, new experiences. There's so many different ways now to experience it than there once was.
I think the idea of art and technology is that you pair with that tool the idea of art, which is human creativity, thinking, reflection, self-identity. So you have two kinds of problem solving, two kinds of progress, and art is our humanity. How else do we even think about humanity of the past except to look at their art? And so if you think of that in the present, art and technology is pairing humanity in ways that will make our lives better, will connect more people, will create more equity. We all know that that's not the only possible future we have, but I think by pressing the art agenda within it, it improves the chances that our technological future is brighter.
The role of art and artists is evolving. And it is clear to see that this collection of artists, curators and creative technologists are encouraging us to question our role in the technological revolution. How will things look different when we participate and help shape the visions we want to see? Technology can be a powerful tool for enhancing our lives, once we're able to gain control and avoid the risks. And these collections show how handing over control to artists might just be the best thing we could do, helping us to connect more, not only with each other, but also ourselves.
San Francisco, a lot of tech action today.
Our top stories this morning in D.C. and
the Dow and the S&P.
The euro on a 7-day. Sizable moves in the currency market. Temperatures down half.
We begin in the oil patch. Saudi Arabia.
Brent crude pretty much unchanged.
Welcome to Bloomberg, the first word Asia.
The U.S. and Japan duke it out over exchange. China's slumping onshore bond market.
Commodity investing is more than buying gold and oil. From coffee and corn to cattle and natural gas, many sectors drive the commodity markets. And the Bloomberg Commodity Index covers them all. With exposure across 23 traded commodities, Bloomberg is the standard for diversification in commodity markets. With full transparency, measure and monitor your investment performance against the benchmark used by commodity professionals globally. More than gold and oil. The Bloomberg Commodity Index. Fuel, corn, livestock, precious metals. Commodities are everywhere, and so is Bloomberg. Bloomberg Commodity Indices deliver leading benchmarks for true diversification. Adding commodity exposure can help hedge against inflation and diversify your stock and bond portfolios. With full data transparency and broad distribution, the Bloomberg suite of commodity indices is your measure for the commodity markets. With Bloomberg, you've got the markets covered. True diversification. That's what adding commodities exposure to your stock and bond portfolio can help provide. The Bloomberg Commodity Index is the standard for commodity market exposure. 23 traded commodities are represented: agriculture, livestock, metals, and energy. The Bloomberg Commodity Index is the benchmark most widely used by investment professionals globally. Track your commodity investments with a proven financial information partner. The Bloomberg Commodity Index. True diversification.
Yet another day of risk off across the financial markets. We bring you special coverage of all the price action and implications here on Bloomberg Television.
Hello, I'm Haslinda Amin in Kuala Lumpur. Mahathir Mohamad's surprise victory in the 2018 election brought great hope for Malaysia. A fresh start for a country mired in corruption, defeat of a party that had ruled since independence. But ongoing power struggles and then his sudden resignation changed all that. The country has a new prime minister, the former party is back in power, and Mahathir is left pondering his political future. This is a conversation with Mahathir Mohamad. Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, thank you so much for joining us today. Your Pakatan Harapan government imploded right after you resigned. Barely 20 months in office. Why did you resign?
I resigned because I lost the support of my own party. I had advised the Central Committee of the party that we should do nothing at the moment. We should just see things as they are. But they insisted on leaving Pakatan Harapan. When they leave Pakatan Harapan's government collapsed. So that night, I thought a long time about it. That since I lost the support of my own party, I decided that I should resign from chairmanship of my party and also from being the Prime Minister. That's how it happened.
In terms of timing, some say that your resignation couldn't have come at a worse time. It came at a time when the country was struggling, the economy was struggling, the coronavirus was spreading rapidly, and your resignation was not in the interest of the people. What's your view on that?
I felt that the resignation could be, last only a short while. I may not return, but we would have a government. If after my resignation, the matter is referred back to Parliament, Parliament can then choose the leader who has the majority, and a new government will be set up. So it shouldn't have taken long. Unfortunately, the process was included making every member of Parliament making a declaration as to who they support. And in that procedure, I did not achieve the majority because most of my vote went to Anwar. Pakatan Harapan gave my votes to Anwar, 92 votes. I won only 66 votes. Had there been the Pakatan Harapan had given me the 92 votes, I would have had a majority and I would have been asked to form a new government. But because there was nobody with a majority, then the problem should be resolved through Parliament. But I think other ideas came through. Parliament couldn't sit because of proper notice not being given. And it was suddenly decided that Muhyiddin should be the Prime Minister. We are not very sure why he was chosen because he did not have a majority.
On hindsight, was there a miscalculation on your decision to resign?
Not miscalculation. If it had been the normal course of things, I think things would have been resolved. I would have had the support of Pakatan Harapan, and I would have the support of my own party, and also maybe Sabah and Sarawak. I would have had the majority, and the whole thing would have ended there.
Dr. Mahathir, you have said repeatedly that you'd like to table a vote of no confidence on the current government. Is that still part of your plan?
Well, that is the feeling among the Pakatan Harapan people. They feel that they have been cheated out, and they think that they had the majority, not me having a majority. Pakatan Harapan had the majority, and they want to move a vote of non-confidence because at the material time when Muhyiddin saw as Prime Minister, he did not have the majority.
So that vote of no confidence will go ahead?
Will go ahead depending on, in the meantime, our numbers are being reduced because Muhyiddin is offering a lot of goodies to our members, and some of them have crossed over, and maybe now we may not have the majority. If we don't have the majority in Parliament, I don't think a vote of non-confidence will resolve the problem.
What is the number that you have now? How close are you to having majority if you don't have that already?
On the day when Muhyiddin was sworn in, we had 114, which is 3 more than what is needed. But I think now we have maybe 108 or so, because a number of our members have been enticed to join Muhyiddin.
What would it take for you to forgive Prime Minister Muhyiddin?
It's not a question of forgiving. Personally, this is not a problem. This is a political thing about wrong usage of positions and power. You see, so asking for forgiveness is not relevant at all.
Is it possible at all that you may join the current coalition government again as Prime Minister or as a senior minister under the current configuration?
No way. No way. For as long as Muhyiddin is associated with UMNO, I will not be open to taking up any post in the government.
As we sit here currently, how confident are you that Pakatan Harapan can form the government again?
Well, currently this government is known as a Malay-Muslim government. Hardly any non-Muslims are in that government. In the next election, the composition would change. There cannot be this heavy representation from the Malay Muslims only, because the Chinese and the Indians also have a powerful clout. They will erode this Malay Muslim government, and it may be to an extent that they cannot achieve a majority to form the government after the 15th election. This is the wrong time to take over a government. The country has never been in such a state, and then suddenly we have this COVID-19, and COVID-19 is destructive.
Melinda Gates, thank you so much for joining us on Bloomberg Studio 1.0.
Who shaped my views were the women I talked to.
I think Facebook's completely warm in a lot of ways. Running Microsoft was a ton of fun, and it was, it's kind of inspirational.
This is your weekly review of the most important business news and interviews from Bloomberg Television around the world.
When opportunity knocks at the door, don't say, blimey, I've still got my pajamas on. Say yes to stuff and it'll take you interesting places.
We're clearly going through some very unusual times and, enormous difficulties getting groups of people to agree on things.
From Bloomberg's European headquarters in the City of London, join us on Leaders with LACWA. I recently spoke with Dr. Wan Azizah Wan Ismail, your former Deputy Prime Minister. She said that if Pakatan Harapan were to come back to power, Anwar Ibrahim would be the one to lead the coalition.
Well, if the people want him, I have no problem. I have been Prime Minister for 2 times. I don't relish the idea at my age of again becoming 3rd time Prime Minister.
You have been reluctant to pass on power to Anwar Ibrahim. Why is that?
I need to have proper authority. If I give a date, then people will say, oh, on that date there will be a change. We don't have to implement his directive or his ideas. I want to make sure that I bring back the stability of the country, the prosperity of the country, and that I cannot be sure on what date. That is why I don't want to name the date. I want to be given some freedom to work on reviving the nation. And I have already put into place all the plans for revival. The economy, the finances, the rural-urban differences, all these things have been put in place. But it takes time to implement and to get results. So I believe that in 1 year's time, we would achieve the projects that we set out in our plan. But of course now with this virus thing, we cannot be very sure when actually we would be able to turn around. So all the more reason why the date should not be given.
Who makes a better Prime Minister, Muhyiddin or Anwar?
Well, I don't pass judgment.
What are the challenges facing Muhyiddin right now?
I think this is the wrong time to take over a government. The country has never been in such a state before. We have the declining economy. It was going down already. And then suddenly we have this COVID-19, and COVID-19 is destructive. We earn a lot of money from tourism. Now tourism is reduced to about 25% of its old level. So we are going to lose about 75% of our earnings from tourism. Then we have the fall in petroleum price. We fixed the petroleum price at $63 US per barrel. Now it is about 30 or 35, which means that we would get less than half of the, because the expenditure would be the same, but the return would be much less. So we would get, before the government would get 80 billion ringgit every year from Petronas. Now it will get maybe about 20 billion. me and problems of paying the loans that we have incurred or the previous
of Goldman's involvement in 1MDB. How did talks end before your government lost power?
Well, Goldman offered to give us about $1 billion US. We estimated, the AG told me that the Goldman owes us about $6.5 billion US. 1 billion, or 1 billion, 1.5 billion is not enough. We tried to persuade for a settlement out of court, but Goldman Sachs was adamant that they will not pay any more than what they have suggested, and so we're now in the courts.
And also central to 1MDB is Joe Low, financier Joe Low. It is pretty mind-boggling that nobody seems to know where he is and he can't be located. Do you know where he is? And what is the difficulty in locating Joe Low?
Well, I think he has found asylum somewhere, and the people who gave him asylum is not forthcoming, not helping us to arrest him. So we have no choice but to accept that he is able to hide from police. The Interpol has not been able to do it.
Do you know where he is hiding?
I don't know.
You've not shortlisted a couple of countries that's providing him asylum?
No, they are very sensitive. If you accuse them, they might get very annoyed. People don't understand this. I don't care about my legacy.
You became Prime Minister for a second time at 92 to bring Najib down.
I'm even concerned that he might somehow wangle a return to become again Prime Minister.
no matter what. Big boys don't crush you, low